Good morning, class 10. Today we shall continue the chapter Nationalism in Europe. You have done many things in this chapter by now, and I hope you have revised all the things. Please read all headings, all paragraphs, all descriptions very carefully so that you keep revising everything, because you will have to remember each and every minutest details which are given in different paragraphs in all the chapters. Okay, you are in a board class now, so you can't do any selective study. Please don't do any selective study. Read the chapters again and again. You have lot of time, and keep revising so that the more you revise, the more you will remember, because the questions can come from anywhere in between the lesson, especially the 1 mark type. They come from the minutest detail which is given in the chapter, and if you are not thorough with the chapter, then you will get stuck. You will not be able to remember that the question is from which lesson. You will not be able to identify the chapter even. So keep on revising everything. Read the chapters again and again so that you remember things and you don't forget them. Now, today we are supposed to start with the heading Unification of Italy and Germany. But before I start this, let us quickly recap the background of this unification of Italy and Germany, so that it will be a revision for you also, and you will be able to understand that why this background was prepared for unification of Italy and Germany. So I am just reading out some important key points which you have already done in the form of paragraphs in your previous history classes. When you were reading about the revolution of the liberals, then you have read that in 1830s there were great economic hardships. The population was increasing rapidly. In Europe, aristocracy was enjoying all the powers and the peasants were struggling. This is very important. The aristocracy was enjoying all the powers and the peasants were struggling. The revolts of the poor followed by the middle class revolts. The revolts which were started by the poor, they were followed by the middle class people who joined the revolts. This line is also important. Earlier, the revolts were started by the peasants, which were later on followed by the middle class people. Then the abdication of the monarch and the republic based on universal male suffrage had been proclaimed. This universal male suffrage you have studied in this chapter. Suffrage means the right to vote. If you remember, the monarch was abdicated. He was removed from the throne, abdication of the monarch, and republic was established, which was based on universal male suffrage. That means all male members of the society were given the right to vote now. Then you have studied that the age of revolutions came. The age of revolutions, the span was 1830 to 1848. In this was called the age of revolutions because the conservatives wanted to consolidate their power. Many regions of Europe associated themselves with revolutions. The educated middle class mainly led these revolutions. As just now I told you that the peasants were struggling, they started a revolution, but later on many revolutions followed and the educated middle class mainly led the revolutions. The first among them was the July Revolution of 1830. This all you have studied. I am just reading for your revision sake. Then the next heading you have studied is the romantic imagination and national feeling. Romantic imagination here means love towards nation. People were inspired to arouse love towards their nation, patriotic feelings towards their nation, arouse nationalist feelings in themselves. It was not only the three revolutions that nationalist feelings aroused among people. culture played a very important role in arousing the feeling of nationalism. Okay, so it means that the revolutions which started, they were not the only means of creating the spirit of nationalism among people, but through culture, poetry, art, drama, etc. These became a new source of inspiring the spirit of nationalism, arousing the spirit of nationalism within the people. Now here you have studied one very important thing, that Romanticism was a cultural movement. This is a very, very important line. It comes in 1 mark question also. It is asked like this, that Romanticism will come under which movement, and you will be given 4 options in the multiple choice. So if you are not very thorough with the chapter, then you will get confused very easily. Please note down somewhere, either in your fair copy, or if you have the book, note down in your book that Romanticism was a cultural movement. Okay, so this is your recap, this is your brushing up of what you had done in your previous class. Now today we shall begin with unification of Italy and Germany. The heading is the making of Germany and Italy. Before I read what is given in your actual textbook, let me give you a brief background from the source which I have. It is just going to help you in understanding the paragraphs which are given in your book. German national unity was achieved in 1871 after a slow and torturous process because of the obstacles placed before it by Prince Metternich. I am reading again. German national unity was achieved in 1871 after a slow and torturous process because of the obstacles placed before it by Prince Metternich. The need for achieving German unity was stressed by great German liberals and scholars. What does it mean? That there were many obstacles in the way of unification of Germany, and the need for achieving German unity was laid down, was stressed by the German liberals and scholars. It was they who sowed the seeds of nationalism. It was they, that means the German liberals and scholars. It was they who sowed the seeds of nationalism when Napoleon conquered and oppressed them. They converted the erstwhile 300 or so German states into 38 states in 1806 and named it the Confederation of the Rhine. Confederation of the Rhine you must have studied in this chapter. So what does Confederation of the Rhine mean? I am reading this again, you will understand. They converted means the German liberals and scholars. They converted the erstwhile, that means then at that time existing 300 or so German states into 38 states. In 1806, 300 German states were compiled together, joined together into 38 states in 1806 and named it as Confederation of the Rhine. Another thing I am reading for you is, this is not from your textbook, children. I am just reading out so that when you will read from your book, when I will just read from your chapter, then you will quickly understand the German unification and Italian unification. The road towards achieving German unity was paved with greater difficulties. That means German unification was not an easy task. The task of initiating German unification was a difficult one. The main obstacle was the attitude of Prince Metternich. The German ruling princes could hardly be expected to realize the ideal. The German ruling princes were could hardly be expected to realize the ideal of German unification. They were selfish. Why it was difficult? Why it was thought that the German ruling princes will not be able to achieve the unification of Germany? The reason is they were selfish and jealous and were not prepared to sacrifice their authority for common good. They were selfish, they were jealous, and they were not ready to sacrifice their authority for the good of the people. That is why it was believed that they will not be able to accomplish or fulfill the task of German unification easily. They were selfish and jealous and were not prepared to sacrifice their authority for the common good. Again, the spirit of nationalism in Germany was not deep rooted. During its early years, it was confined to a small section of population. What was confined? The spirit of nationalism in Germany at this time was not deep rooted. That means generally the common people did not have the spirit of nationalism in their hearts. During the early years, it was confined to a small section of population, namely philosophers, poets, writers, and students. Even the liberals who desired unification of Germany were split into groups. The liberals also were divided into groups, and they all, by and large, were lacking the spirit of nationalism in their hearts. Now, Bismarck and the unification of Germany. Bismarck was the main figure, the main prominent figure behind unification of Germany. We have read some of the problems. I have read for you some of the problems which lay in the task, in the path of unification of Germany. Now I am reading in very short, just a brief background for you, the role of Bismarck in unification of Germany. Although the efforts of the Frankfurt Parliament to unite Germany under the leadership of the Prussian king failed in 1848, it was nevertheless achieved by Bismarck, an outstanding diplomat and statesman of Prussia. In the course of 20 years, he relentlessly pursued his most desired objective, unification of Germany, with the combination of diplomacy and wars. That means in the Frankfurt Parliament, under the leadership of Prussian king, the efforts of unification of Germany failed, but it was due to the diplomacy and wars of Bismarck, the diplomatic attitude of this statesman Bismarck, that the process of unification of Germany was completed. Under the leadership of Bismarck, the unification of Germany was completed. He was convinced that Prussia's future greatness depended upon a strong monarchy and not on democracy. Very important line. He was convinced, Bismarck was convinced, that Prussia's future greatness depended upon a strong monarchy and not on democracy. He began to think seriously about the problems confronting the German states. He also knew that Austria would never tolerate a strong Prussia. Therefore, Austria should be eliminated in order to bring about the unification of Germany. Austria was a hindrance in the unification of Germany, and Bismarck was convinced that Austria would never tolerate a strong Prussia coming up. That is why he thought that Austria should be eliminated in order to bring a strong unification of Germany, a successful unification of Germany. So the three wars were fought: war with Austria, war with Denmark, and war with France. Three wars were fought. First was with Austria, second was with Denmark, and third was with France. Okay, now a little more about Denmark and France, and then we will start from our actual book. Bismarck, so just now I have read for you that Bismarck realized that Austria will never tolerate Prussia becoming powerful, Prussia becoming a strong power. So he started a war with Austria. Then second was war with Denmark. Bismarck calculated that for bringing about German unification, the defeat of Denmark constituted the first phase. That means he realized that Denmark is going to be another obstacle in the way of unification, so he decided to defeat Denmark as well. Third was war with France. The war with France was essential in that it would create necessary conditions for the southern German states to join the northern German Confederation and thus bring about the total unification of Germany. I am repeating. The war with France was essential in that it would create necessary conditions for the southern German states to join the North German Confederation and thus bring about total German unification. That means Bismarck realized that in order to complete the process of unification, he had defeated Austria, he had defeated Denmark, but if he would not defeat France and he would not reunite the northern and the southern German states, then the unification is not going to be considered complete. So he started his next agenda, that is defeating France. The quarrel between France and Prussia arose over the issue of Spanish succession. The Spanish throne fell vacant and it was offered to a relative of the King of Prussia at the instance of Bismarck. His action provoked France since she did not like to see Prussia becoming dangerously strong on both sides of her borders. The Prussian king urged his relative not to accept the Spanish crown. Accordingly, Prince Leopold declined the offer. The French were overjoyed at their diplomatic victory. Bismarck, who was working behind the scene, was disappointed at the turn of events. But later on, through his diplomacy and tact, he was able to defeat France as well. This is a very brief background of the three wars which were fought, and finally the unification was successfully achieved. Now I am reading from your textbook, the NCERT textbook which you have downloaded. You can also see the paragraphs there which I am now going to read for you. Germany, can the army be the architect of the nation? After 1848, nationalism in Europe moved away from its association with democracy and revolution. After 1848, nationalism in Europe moved away from its association with democracy and revolution. Just now I have read that it was believed by Bismarck that democracy is now no longer going to be helpful. They will have to depend upon a strong monarchical rule rather than depending upon democracy. Nationalist sentiments were often mobilized by conservatives for promoting state power and achieving political domination over Europe. This can be observed in the process by which Germany and Italy came to be united as nation states. As you have seen, nationalist feelings were widespread among middle-class Germans. When I started the class today, I had reminded you that you have studied earlier that the revolutions were started by the peasants, which later were followed by the middle-class gentry. As you have seen, nationalist feelings were widespread among middle class people. The feelings of nationalism were more widespread. Just now I have read from another book also that the feelings of nationalism were widespread among the middle class gentry, the students, professors, poets, etc. As you have seen, nationalist feelings were widespread among middle class Germans who in 1848 tried to unite different regions of the German Confederation into a nation state governed by an elected parliament. So these people, these middle class people who had the spirit of nationalism, they wanted that different regions of the German Confederation should be united into one nation state governed by the elected parliament. This liberal initiative to nation building was, however, repressed by the combined forces of the monarchy and military, supported by the large landowners called Junkers of Prussia. You must have studied the word Junkers earlier. If you have not yet noted down, please note down who were the Junkers. This question is often asked in the 1 mark question. So you will have to write that Junkers were large landowners of Prussia. This is an important 1 mark question, children. Don't ignore this. Please note down somewhere. I am reading this again. This liberal initiative to nation building was, however, repressed. This liberal initiative to nation building was repressed by the combined forces of the monarchy and military, supported by the large landowners called Junkers of Prussia. That means the monarchy, the military, and the large landowners, they did not support this unification. From then on, Prussia took on the leadership of the movement for national unification. Its chief minister, Otto von Bismarck, was the architect of this process, carried out with the help of the Prussian army and bureaucracy. Now, this was a slight turning point when it was seen that the monarchy, the military, and the Junkers, they are not going to support the unification process. Then the leadership was taken by Bismarck. Who was Bismarck? The chief minister. These small little things are very, very important, children, because they are often asked in 1 mark question. The chief minister at this time was Bismarck, and he is considered the architect of the German unification. Please remember this also. Its chief minister, Otto von Bismarck, was the architect of the process carried out with the help of Prussian army and the bureaucracy. With some selected officials and with the Prussian army, he started the work of unification of Germany under his leadership. 3 wars over 7 years with Austria, Denmark, and France ended in Prussian victory. Just now, for your just a brief background, I have read that he decided to fight 3 wars. He fought wars with Austria and won over Austria. Then he switched over Denmark. He defeated Denmark also, and finally France. So he fought 3 wars in 7 years' time, and Prussia got victory over these 3 wars. 3 wars over 7 years with Austria, Denmark, and France ended in Prussian victory and completed the process of unification. So this was how unification of Germany was completed. Earlier, it was found that the aristocracy, the monarchy, the military, and the Junkers were not joining hands with the unification, and the nationalist feelings were confined only with the middle class people. So Bismarck came into the scene. He was the chief minister, and with the help of the bureaucracy and the Prussian army, he defeated Austria, Denmark and France, and in the 7 years time he got victory over these three places, and then the process of unification was thus completed. Prussian army was victorious. In 1871, the Prussian king William I was proclaimed German emperor in a ceremony held at Versailles. Very, very important 1-mark question, children. Please note down this question somewhere in your copies. In 1871, the Prussian king, it is asked like this: who was the Prussian king in 1871 when the unification of Germany was completed? So the answer is William I. In January 1871, the Prussian king William I was proclaimed the German emperor in a ceremony held at Versailles. On the bitterly cold morning of 18 January 1871, an assembly comprising the princes of the German states, representatives of the army, important Prussian ministers including the chief minister Otto von Bismarck, gathered in the unheated hall of mirrors in the palace of Versailles to proclaim the new German empire headed by Kaiser William I of Prussia. So his full name is Kaiser William I. Please note down it somewhere. Again I am repeating, it is a very important 1-mark question. The nation building process in Germany had demonstrated the dominance of Prussian state power. The nation building process in Germany had demonstrated the dominance of Prussian state power. The new state placed a strong emphasis on modernizing the currency. This line is important. The new state, that means Germany, the newly created Germany, unified Germany. The new state placed a strong emphasis on modernizing the currency, banking, legal and judicial systems in Germany. Prussian measures and practices often became a model for the rest of Germany. So this is how the unification of Germany was successfully completed. Now we shall read about Italy unified. Okay, Italy unified. Like Germany, Italy too had a long history of political fragmentation. Now in Italy, three important people played a role for Italian unification. In Germany, one person was there, Otto von Bismarck. But in Italy, three figures were very important who played their own roles of completing the unification of Italy. The three people were Mazzini, Count Cavour and Garibaldi. Mazzini, Count Cavour and Garibaldi. These three played a very important role in unification of Italy. Now children, you must have heard about Mazzini, and he started a secret society which was known as Young Italy. And Mazzini joined the Carbonari. Carbonari was a part of the secret society, and the secret society Young Italy was started by Mazzini. Please remember all these things. These are small details but extremely important details. Mazzini started a secret society called Young Italy, and he himself joined the Carbonari. Carbonari was the one of the parts of the secret society, that is Young Italy. Mazzini, Cavour and Garibaldi all struggled for unity and freedom of Italy. Like Germany, Italy too had a long history of political fragmentation. That means dividing Italy into small segments. Italians were scattered over several dynastic states as well as multinational Habsburg Empire. During the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided into 7 states, of which only one, Sardinia Piedmont, was ruled by an Italian princely house. This line is important here. I am reading again. During the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided into 7 states, of which only one, Sardinia Piedmont is taken as one. These are two different names, but they are taken as one. Sardinia Piedmont was ruled by an Italian princely house. The north was under the Austrian Habsburg, the center was ruled by the Pope, and the southern regions were under the domination of the Bourbon kings of Spain. So, what did we see? I am reading this again because this is important. We have read that Italy was divided into 7 states. Only Sardinia Piedmont was governed by the Italian princely house. Others were governed or ruled by different authorities, which I am reading again. The north was under Austrian Habsburg. The center was ruled by the Pope, and the southern regions were under the domination of the Bourbon kings of Spain. So different authorities were ruling different parts of Italy. Even the Italian language had not acquired one common form and still had many regional and local variations. That means not only the parts of Italy were governed in different ways and different administrations were looking after them, but even the Italian language had not acquired its significant place, and in different regions it had its own variations, different styles of speaking. Only one Italian language, its one form was not accepted till now, so that the people could communicate in one common form. This was not accepted. This was the Italian language was not given this recognition till now. Different variations of the language were found in different places. During the 1830s, Giuseppe Mazzini had sought to put together a coherent program for a unitary Italian republic. So, in the unification of Germany, we saw that who got the idea of unification? It was Otto von Bismarck. Here, who got the idea? Giuseppe Mazzini had sought to put together a coherent program for a unitary Italian republic. It was he who wanted to bring about unification of Italy. He had also formed a secret society called Young Italy. Just now I told you Mazzini formed a secret society called Young Italy for the dissemination of his goals. Dissemination of his goals means in order to popularize his goal. What goal? Unification of Italy. In order to make this goal popular, dissemination of his goal, in order to popularize his goal of unification of Italy, he formed a secret society called Young Italy. Please remember this secret society name, Young Italy. It was formed by Mazzini.